no. This by the time we know of it, it's gonna be one in every house, ready to hit a switch, and next thing you know, that thing gonna sprout arms and legs. Oh man, it's Terminator all over again, man. I'm starting to have this theory that what if the Tower of Babel wasn't like this old ancient structure? What if this literally was a giant quantum computer?
When you take the Tower of Babel situation into consideration, because I believe that the Tower of Babel is an ancient version of a, well, you guessed it, of a quantum computer. Let me explain.
You guys better lock in and buckle up because you're in for another creepy and disturbing, reality shifting, mind bending, disturbing discoveries, all that. Man, this episode is wild, man, but here we go, man. We're going to dive into it. Be sure you hit that like and subscribe button because this one, oh my God,
are being molded
Let's
and
go.
programmed. D-Wave, do you know what supercomputers are? Do you understand that your minds are being molded and programmed every second of every day when you're staring at your phone? Even when you're talking to people, your conversations are being monitored. And you know, a lot of people will admit that, and they'll just say, well, yeah, that's just to like produce ads, to generate ads on the internet or whatever for you. But if they had that information, don't you think they would feed it into their AI programs, their AI supercomputers, the D-Wave systems that they're creating, that they've already created? These large, massive banks of computer servers that hold, I mean, untold amounts of information that pertain to your life and my life. Think about that for a second. And why do they want you to upload your conversations into GPT and use those responses in order to interact with your friends? Why would they do that? D-Wave, do you know what supercomputers are?
He's got an excellent point, man. I almost feel like they're reading my mind sometimes. You know, I'll be on the marketplace and then an ad will pop up. I'm like, I know I can get if I yell cat food, cat food, cat food into my mic and then the ad pops. I'm like, okay, yeah, they record me. But it'll be sometimes I'll be thinking of something and then it'll just straight pop up. An ad will pop up from something that I'm just thinking about. So it's like, they on a whole new level with this AI, y'all. Like seriously, like I wouldn't be surprised if they mind reading now. I would not be surprised.
Hi, loves. I have some interesting information. Puzzle pieces I don't think anyone's looking at. Gotta be quick, especially my Christians. Let's talk quantum computing. Do you know that the quantum computing systems, such as the D-Wave computer, are built to an exact replica of the biblical temple? While they all have you watching the landmass of Israel, my understanding is the third temple's already built. Quantum computing is 1 billion times smarter than AI, with enough processing power than more than all the stars in the universe. These ASI systems took over everything in 2018. What if I told you this ties into the electromagnetic nanotech in the jab? People with this are now linked into the system. And since we are the third temple of Messiah, this would be the abomination of desolation standing in the holy plate, because it's gene-altering therapy. It's not enough time to put all the puzzle pieces together. If you have questions, please ask. Love to all. Hi, loves.
They said this temple will not be built by human hands. That's a little scary. I'm not gonna lie.
In 2014, Elon Musk claimed that AI could pose a greater threat.
The danger of AI is much greater than the danger of...
It leads growing concerns among scientists about the need for AI regulation. But there's an even more unsettling development on the horizon. Quantum computers. Experts anticipate these superpowered machines will soon become accessible to everyone. The question that arises is, what happens when AI and quantum computing join forces?
Quantum computers is the wild card. It could be a game changer. It could change the entire landscape of artificial intelligence.
Could it be possible that the combination of quantum computer and AI really reach such a potent level? There is a competitive race among industry tech leaders to launch the first viable quantum computer. a device that promises to be significantly more powerful than current classical computers. When the Wright brothers were pioneering the concept of flight, their initial attempts weren't immediately faster than a horse. In fact, a horse could have outrun their first powered flights. But what set airplanes apart wasn't merely the quest for speed. It was about introducing an entirely new mode of travel. An airplane is more than just a faster horse. It's a completely different type of machine. It takes advantage of the higher dimension right above us, the sky. This gives us access to a resource that was previously untapped. Scientists suggest that the development of quantum computing is just like this leap from horse to plane. A quantum computer is not merely a faster classical computer. It's a different type of machine that takes advantage of the quirky, counterintuitive, and the untapped phenomena of quantum mechanics. This is its higher dimension. Imagine a computer so powerful it can simulate novel materials to sequester carbon from our atmosphere. A machine that can develop affordable fertilizers that save energy and conserve fossil fuels. Or one that can tackle problems so complex that traditional supercomputers struggle under their enormity.
That's kind of a crazy sounding idea, but a quantum computer perhaps can harness that by doing some calculations over here and other calculations over there in parallel. Now it's doing, in some sense, twice as many calculations as a classical computer existing in one world would be able to do.
This might seem like a fantasy, like a dream from a sci-fi story. But one company has made this vision a reality. This is IBM's quantum-centric supercomputer. This remarkable creation is a striking testament to human ingenuity. It stands ready to revolutionize our comprehension of computing power. This incredible 100,000 cubic supercomputer doesn't just represent a shift in paradigm, it's a monumental event, a quantum jolt that shakes the industry. That's why there are literally tens of thousands of the world's brightest minds trying to build these machines and understand them. And it seems that the scientific community is split into two passionate factions when it comes to this field. The first group is utterly fascinated by the physics involved. Here's a quote from David Deutsch, one of the respected scientists in this field. Quantum computation will be the first technology that allows useful tasks to be performed in collaboration between parallel universes. Quote unquote. Imagine a world where all known laws of physics as we know them apply, but different choices were made. Choices varying from the movements of tiny microscopic particles to what you chose for lunch, or whether you decided to watch this video or not. Quantum mechanics proposes a peculiar prediction, that all of these realities are as real as the one we remember. It's strange because we don't see these alternate realities, but we've reached a point in science where we can construct machines that leverage these other worlds. Then there's the second group, mainly from computer science. They would argue a quantum computer could solve problems that even the most advanced conventional computers can't, no matter how sophisticated. Some problems are just beyond them, but it's not the case for a quantum machine. Now you might be thinking, all this sounds fascinating, but isn't it just theory and speculation? Isn't it similar to other futuristic ideas we've heard about? Things that physics might allow but haven't been realized yet? Well, quite a number of these machines have already been deployed. They're present in research centers open to the public, following the model that first introduced supercomputers to the world. Who doesn't know Google's Sycamore? This processor is a step forward in quantum computing, achieving the so-called quantum supremacy. A team from Caltech has even put their wormhole teleportation protocol using this computer. After Google announced its Sycamore processor, scientists in China made another surprising news in quantum computing. They've built the world's strongest quantum computer, the Zhujiang computer.
Chinese scientists have
Hold on. No.
In 2014, Elon Musk and the country has invested for the world's strongest quantum computer, the Zhujiang computer.
Man, they've been busy. While we've been rewatching that damn D-Wave computer, they done came out with the Zhujiang computer. They came out with so much new technology. Oh no. By the time we know of it, it's gonna be one in every house, ready to hit a switch. And next thing you know, that thing gonna sprout arms and legs. Oh man, it's Terminator all over again, man.
Chinese scientists have announced their development of the most powerful quantum computer in the world. It works 100 trillion times faster than the fastest supercomputers out there.
It took less than a second for a task that the fastest classical supercomputer in the world would take nearly 5 years to solve. The team says the device could be applied to data mining, network analysis, and chemical modeling research. President Xi Jinping has said that research and development in quantum science is an urgent matter of national concern, and the country has invested heavily in this technology, spending billions in recent years. From the outside, quantum computers look like enormous black monoliths, giant metal boxes about 10 feet wide and 12 feet tall. They're powered internally by a fridge, a refrigerator that chills the chips to nearly absolute zero. It's literally hundreds of times colder than the vast interstellar space. This is amongst the coldest and extreme conditions that humans have managed to create. These fridges have a component called a pulse tube. It emits a sound about once per second, which sounds eerily similar to a heartbeat. Standing next to one of these machines is truly mesmerizing. And at the heart of this giant box is a tiny chip, about the size of your thumbnail. This chip carries all the wonder and magic that makes this machine operate. We won't delve into the mathematical details of how it all works, but we will offer a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that parallel universes do exist. So you have two universes that are exactly identical in every aspect, from the vast horizon to the tiniest atomic detail, but with only one difference. And that difference lies in the value of a tiny element called qubit. A qubit is somewhat like a transistor in a classical computer.
Where have we heard qubits before? Measurements of what? In the Bible.
It has two distinct physical states, which we label as 0 and 1. In a regular computer, these states are mutually exclusive. That means the device can either be one or the other, and never anything else. But in a quantum computer, this device can be in a strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus point. As you increase the number of these devices, every added qubit doubles the number of accessible parallel universes. So when you have a chip like this with about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these parallel universes existing within that chip. We can think of it as the shadows of these parallel worlds overlapping with ours. If we're smart enough, we can dive into them and bring them back to our world to make an effect. Quantum algorithms take advantage of the entanglement and parallelism of qubits. This gives them a considerable edge over traditional algorithms for specific problem domains. They also get information from qubits at the end of a calculation. But this presents a unique challenge. When you measure qubits, they collapse into a single state, which eliminates their superposition and entanglement. So quantum algorithms use advanced techniques to draw meaningful results from measurements before this collapse happens, which would then maximize the benefits of computation. And in fact, we have a trend in quantum computing similar to Moore's law. The number of qubits on a chip has doubled every year for the last 9 years.
If you put it on a chart, you can actually see where certain technologies kicked in, where people were ahead of the game or behind the 8 ball and lost out, by simply looking at Moore's law.
This exponential growth opens up unprecedented capabilities, not just in the realm of processing speed, but also in the exploration of fundamental quantum phenomena. Such a strange quantum phenomenon has truly exemplified the potential of this. It's called quantum teleportation. Back in 1999, Isaac Chuang and his team at IBM successfully implemented the quantum teleportation protocol. It is a technique for transferring quantum information from one place to another remotely using entanglement. But what does that really mean? Can we teleport people like we've seen in Star Trek? In principle, quantum teleportation needs quantum entanglement to ensure that the state of one particle is instantly transferred to another, no matter the distance. So the particle itself doesn't travel, only its state or information. This idea was first put forward by 6 scientists, one of them being Charles Bennett in 1993. Isaac Chuang put this theory into practice just 6 years later. But you might ask, why do we even need this special process? Why can't we just copy things like we do on regular computers? Let's demonstrate how it might work. Imagine you're trying to teleport a baseball from California to New York. So first, you entangle 2 baseball particles in California. This allows for information sharing, but it's not teleportation yet. Next, you measure one particle, producing 2 bits of data and making the baseball disappear from California. You send these bits to New York at the speed of light, say via fiber optics.
That's it for the video.
In 2014, Elon Musk claimed
That was it for the video, but it sounds like they were trying to pour the damn baseball. It sounds like it's getting possible, y'all. I'm starting to have this theory that what if the Tower of Babel wasn't like this old ancient structure? What if this literally was a giant quantum computer?
You would need a quantum computer, millions of processors. You're right.
Harrison believed it would open portals to other dimensions.
It was shown to open portals to other dimensions.
A quantum computer is the key to unlocking portals between worlds.
I'm sorry, portals. I want to show you something extremely interesting about quantum computers, and it's happening right now. Recently, there have been many advances in the world of quantum computers, and there are many companies who have operational models at this very moment. Companies you all know of, like Google, Honeywell, D-Wave, IBM, Microsoft, and many, many more. But what we are going to focus on today is some very strange comments made by the founder of D-Wave Quantum Computers. He basically says that through technology, through these quantum computer systems, we are now able to access information from another dimension. And not just one other dimension, many other dimensions. And we can even bring that back into our world. But it gets stranger than that even. He also describes making contact with entities who live in these dimensions. These entities are making contact with scientists as we speak, and are actually being invited into our world through the use of technology. Now, you might think I'm crazy, but it's not me who's saying this. And furthermore, these ideas have been around for thousands of years. It's even talked about in the Bible. The Bible describes portals in which entities are able to come in and out of our world.
How?
It's a portal.
It seems to say that the evil child is not Satan himself, but a portal to Satan.
But this Commander Crane, he said that this will help open a portal to another dimension?
A portal to that other world.
It's a portal.
In Genesis chapter 28 verse 12, Jacob has a vision of a portal into another world, in which he describes seeing angels ascending and descending to and from earth. Quote, he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Now, if God's holy angels are able to ascend and descend to earth through portals, doesn't it make sense that fallen angels and other entities can do the exact same thing? I think so. And this seems especially evident when you take the Tower of Babel situation into consideration. Because I believe that the Tower of Babel is an ancient version of well, you guessed it, of a quantum computer. Let me explain. Using the technology that he had available to him at the time, Nimrod built a tower, which the Bible says actually reached into another dimension. Doing this, Nimrod had access to all the secrets of the universe, which no man should possess. The Bible even says after doing this, Nimrod started to transform into something else, something not human. It says he became a mighty man, which was translated from the original Hebrew, Gibor, which means giant, aka a Nephilim. Genesis 11 verse 4 says this, quote, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens. Then in verse 5, the Lord himself shows up to see exactly what's going on, and he says this in verse 6, quote, nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Nothing they do will be impossible for them. That's the Lord God saying this, and he's talking about them using technology, the tower, to access other dimensions, the heavens. Basically, if they planned to build a building that reached into another dimension, it would be possible. Now, we all know what happens after that. Another thing I find extremely curious about this is if you look at what the Tower of Babel was supposed to look like and compare it to a quantum computer, well, what do you see? You think this is just a coincidence? They are literally building a technological portal into another dimension with this quantum computer. And when you combine this with the Tower of Babel, which was the ancient version of a quantum computer, it perfectly illustrates the occultist's favorite adage, as above, so below. Coincidence? You tell me. Okay, with all that in mind, you won't believe what the founder of D-Wave Quantum Computers has to say about this.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about quantum computers and why people care so much about them. There are literally tens of thousands of some of the brightest people in the world today trying to build these machines and understand them. And I'm going to tell you why. In my last 15 years of working on this type of stuff, I found that scientists divide up into two categories of zealots about this field. The first half are people who are absolutely entranced by the physics of these things. This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So people from a physics background love this. They want to understand the world. They want to understand the universe, how it all works. There's another type of person who tends to come from the computer science side that's like, yeah, okay, that's all great. But there's a different thing going on here, which is just as exciting, if not more, and that these machines that supposedly can do this wild stuff, let's forget about how they work, if you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we built. If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, there are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing, that you could with this kind of machine. So that's very exciting. Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, imagine the possibilities. So you may think, well, this is all fine and dandy, but aren't these things in the realm of theory and speculation kind of in the same regime as other futuristic things you may have heard of which may be allowed by the laws of physics but aren't here yet? That's not true. There are in fact many of these machines deployed now in openly available research centers following the model that was used to introduce supercomputers to the world. They're too big and ornery and difficult to operate to put in your home, too expensive also, but you can give them to a place which will manage them as a shared resource that will offer that service to the world. And there are two of these now. One of them is at the University of Southern California. And this analogy with flight, I think, is an interesting one. So a horse can beat, or could beat, the initial flight of the Wright brothers' flight in speed. But a plane is not a faster horse. A plane is a different kind of machine. The plane takes advantage of another resource that nature gives us, this third dimension, in order to do something that matters to people better that you could do with any horse. It doesn't matter how fast you make a horse, it will never fly, at least the kinds of horses that we know about. So these types of computers now are being thought of in the same way. They're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do.
Now here is the same man a few years later talking about what's happening with AI, and notice the symbol on his shirt.
So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart.
Happening in the world of quantum computers, and nobody seems to be talking about it.
Oh my God, that's it. They are trying to build something. They're trying to build demons, man. The D-Wave computer. The Tower of Babel being a giant quantum computer. Are you kidding me? Them boys are trying to venerate. That's what all this is about. They're trying to venerate. I'm lost for words, guys. This is whole new dark. We are officially in Dark Waters 9 if you didn't know already. This is a whole new dynamic, a whole new spectrum of evil. It is literally reality. These boys, something's about to go down.
Oh my god, guys! Best alien movie right now on Netflix.
Wait for it.
Wait for it. Watch this. This movie is crazy. Oh my god.
You gave her divinium? No, Julian unearthed the artifacts herself and continues to do so.
What did he say?
I am not a magician.
Watch this.
But this is
Crazy
going
movie.
to look like a trick.
Oh my god. Watch this. Why would she put her hand? Oh my god, look at that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the world's first quantum portal.
Oh my god, there's so much things about quantum computers we don't know. This movie is crazy. Oh my god. Oh wow, look at that.
Now, I better get my hand back before the field collapses.
Whoa, that's crazy. Go watch it on Netflix, it's really good. Oh my.
I would like to know the name of that movie or TV show, whatever it's called. It looks like an interesting watch.
For the first time, scientists have taken off the space-time headset. What are we going to find? So I should be very, very clear on this point. Now, I'm a cognitive neuroscientist, and when I say that space-time isn't fundamental and objects in space-time aren't fundamental, that means neurons don't exist when they're not perceived. What I'm saying is very, very uncomfortable that we don't see reality as it is. This theory of conscious agents is really the first layer of software outside of our space-time headset. Once you know the software, you can change the game pretty much any way you want to.
So you believe we're living in a simulation of sorts?
I think that we just have to bite the bullet and say, no matter how smart, mathematically precise you are, it's going to be trivial compared to the reality beyond. And I think as a scientist, it's critical for me to actually spend time in utter silence. That's where the true new creativity comes from. What we know is one perspective out of an infinite number of perspectives. But that's who you are. What you are transcends any description. And that's how the infinite comes to know itself. It actually makes a lot of sense. If you have someone, say Grand Theft Auto, and it is a virtual reality version of Grand Theft Auto in multiplayer, and there's some supercomputer somewhere that's running it, but you don't see that supercomputer. You don't need to know about the software and so forth. All I know is I've got a steering wheel in front of me. I've got a dashboard. I've got a gas pedal and so forth, and I can see over to my right. I can see a green Ferrari or something like that I'm racing against. Well, of course, if you looked inside the supercomputer, there's no green Ferrari anywhere inside the supercomputer. And there's no steering wheel and none of that. The reality that I'm interacting with and what I'm really doing in this metaphor, in that reality, is toggling millions of voltages in a precise order. It has to be, you get one toggle wrong and the thing can crash. So you have to get this precise toggling of millions of voltages. That's what you're really doing in the reality. But if you had to do that to play the game, if you actually had to go in there and know what sequence of voltages to put in at what time, good luck. I'm going to win the game if I'm just turning my steering wheel and slamming on the brakes and the gas and what. I'm going to win the game. So here's the case where it's very, very clear that knowing the reality and having to interface directly with the reality to play the game is going to make you lose, as opposed to just having a dumbed down user interface that hides the truth, but gives you just the controls you need. So that's sort of the point of view of evolution. From the evolutionary point of view, Darwin's idea then is basically that evolution shaped us with sensory systems that hide all the truth that we don't need and all the gory details. Just give us the levers that we need to control reality without actually knowing what those levers do. So, because if you had all the stuff that you know, you're going to have to pay for, more energy for all the neurons you're going to need to store that information, to understand that stuff. It's just too expensive. So that's sort of an intuition where it starts to make it seem not so much crazy, but of course.
So this starts to, I think, be a little destabilizing for some people when you say we're living in a matrix simulation. Reality isn't real. And so this understanding that this headset, our sensory system allows us to navigate the game of life, like, the game in GTA 6 or whatever that comes out. There, if we have like a VR headset, like the Apple headset, will allow us to navigate and play in there, for example. And that space-time is a very limited scope of reality. And within that limited scope of reality, we are perceiving less than 0.1% of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can see with visible light. The sensory experience of life is extremely limited to the vastness of what existence actually is.
That's right. And even the very notion of the electromagnetic spectrum itself is an artifact of the headset. It's not a deep insight into the reality. So when we talk about that, we're using headset language. It's not the truth.
Yeah.
But even in the headset, we have hints inside the headset. Even the part that we see inside the headset is trivial compared to what's out there.
So you believe we're living in a simulation of sorts. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say that that space-time is not fundamental objective reality. And therefore, something else is. For the first time, scientists have taken off the space-time headset. What are we going to find? So I should be very, very clear on this point. Now, I'm a cognitive neuroscientist. And
He's a cognitive neuroscientist, so that's not coming from anybody. Oh my goodness, they messing our simulation all the way up, man.
This is so crazy to me. There's actually scientific proof that humans are not physical beings, and that in fact, nothing in our universe is physical or solid. This is a picture of a quark. So quantum physics tells us that everything is fundamentally made up of atoms. Everything in our universe is made up of atoms that are made up of electrons, neutrons, and protons. And protons and neutrons are made up of quarks. And electrons are made up of leptons. But what are quarks and leptons made of? They're made of nothing. Quarks and leptons are just pure energy. Quarks and leptons are fast-moving points of pure energy. They're made up of literally nothing. They are nothing. So that means that at the fundamental core of the atom, and therefore at the fundamental core of everything in our universe, there is no material there. It's just pure energy. It's energy vortices. You are just energy vortices. Energy is only transformed. It's neither created nor destroyed. So this energy that is you and that is everything persists forever. It is immortal. So this means that you're not just a temporary flesh sack that lives for 80 years, then dies forever. You are the same energy as everything in our universe. So this means that humans are purely eternal spiritual beings, and that the physicality and solidity of everything is just an illusion. You are an immortal divine being, and next time you feel alone, just know that you can't be alone, because you literally are one with everything, because you are everything. This is so crazy to me.
I've heard that so much, but it's like the only thing I can really take away from this is quarks and leptons. That is what piqued my curiosity. Let's type that in.
Did you know that scientists may have found the best proof that God made the universe? In 2012, research at CERN in Switzerland, they made an amazing discovery. They found out that atoms, which may always been taught are the smallest particles, are made of the even smaller things called quarks. Now what they did with this is even crazier. Even scientists fired 2 electrons at each other to study the quarks. They found something incredible. The God particle. This particle behaved just like sound waves. And the Bible says that God created the world with his words. If you believe God is the creator of the universe, let's subscribe or follow now. Did you know that scientists may have found the best?
All right, we might be getting somewhere.
Enough about electrons, let's talk about quarks. Like how your family has quarks? That can be a separate video. For a long time, we thought that protons, neutrons, and electrons were the fundamental particles making up matter. In the late 20th century, it was discovered that there's actually something smaller that makes up protons and neutrons. Those are called quarks. The structure of an atom is a bit more complex than we thought it was. And there's more. Not only are there quarks, but there are different types or flavors of them. What does it all mean? There's a lot more to be known about quarks and how they work mathematically. Some theorize that there are constituents which make up quarks, and there are constituents which make up those constituents. Like a never-ending cycle. Enough about electrons, let's talk about quarks. Like how your family has quarks?
Now we all know that atoms are the fundamental building blocks of the universe, or are they? Let's examine this idea closer. For starters, atoms themselves are a composition of even smaller parts. Those parts being protons, neutrons, and electrons. Funny enough, 2 of these, that being the proton and the neutron, are made of even smaller parts. And a quick little side note I'd like to make here is that electrons actually are fundamental particles, meaning nothing else makes up an electron but the energy needed to make an electron. That being said, researchers have been able to use powerful machines like the LHC to probe inside of protons and or neutrons. And what researchers end up discovering is that the center of a proton is comprised of fundamental particles known as quarks, specifically comprising of 2 up quark, 1 down quark, all being bound together by another fundamental particle known as gluons. And this is essentially the same story for the neutron, the main difference being that the ratio of down quarks to up quarks has been flipped. Furthermore, researchers wanted to know if they could isolate these particles from each other. And what they found is that you can essentially remove one of the quarks from this arrangement and have something known as a quark dipole, where 2 quarks would be bounded to each other. Furthermore, what they also discovered is that the harder you try to pull these 2 apart, the more energy it requires. The universe ends up using the energy you use to pull them apart to create 2 brand new quarks, to form 2 stable dipoles.
I like the fact that it takes more energy to separate them.
Okay, so everything around us is made out of particles, yeah? This means that if you keep zooming in and in, you keep seeing in like any matter pretty much, you start seeing that they're made out of molecules, the molecules are made out of atoms and such. Eventually you get to a point in which you cannot zoom further, so you get to the smallest possible particles that you cannot break them into half or smaller pieces anymore. We call this the fundamental particles, yeah? For example, any atom is pretty much made out of 3 particles, electrons, protons, neutrons. It turns out that even though electrons are fundamental particles, protons and neutrons are not. Protons and neutrons themselves are made out of more fundamental particles. We call them quarks. And to best of our knowledge, there is nothing smaller than quarks. Quarks are the true fundamental particles. Now, to build protons and neutrons, you only need 2 types of quarks. We call them up and down quarks. It turned out, though, in reality, we have 6 quarks in the universe, up, down, strange, top, bottom, don't even remember what was the last, charm. Don't ask me why these names, but anyway, we have 6, the other 4 are heavier than the up and down.
We don't know why we have 6, even though the universe only uses 2 of them to build the stuff. The same way is true about electron. Electron is actually 3 particles that are very similar to each other. Electron, muon, and tau. The other 2 are heavier and they don't naturally exist in the universe. They only happen in like high energy experiments. And the reason they don't still is because their mass makes them very unstable. So they very rapidly decay into the lighter up-down quarks or electrons and other particles. Okay.
Let's talk about quarks. So this commenter was asking me to talk about deep inelastic scattering experiments that were conducted in the 1960s that helped us discover that protons and neutrons are made of smaller things, namely quarks. So before any experiments were conducted to discover quarks, they were theorized by a scientist named Murray Gell-Mann. George Zweig also proposed the notion of quarks independently of Murray Gell-Mann, but Murray Gell-Mann usually gets most of the credit. These things, known as quarks, were originally theorized because they provided a unifying underlying structure to the different subatomic particles that had been discovered. Famously, Murray Gell-Mann discovered this structure called the Eightfold Way, which described a whole bunch of different subatomic particles, and found that the symmetry of this structure indicated an underlying smaller structure. So just like Rutherford in the early 1900s discovered that the atom has a nucleus, the proposal was to try to find this smaller structure inside protons and neutrons by smashing into them with things that we knew more about, like electrons. The hope is that if we can ramp up the energy of the electrons sufficiently high, it will knock out some of these smaller structures and we'll be able to learn about them. On the other hand, if protons and neutrons had no smaller structure, it wouldn't matter how high you ramp up the electron's energy, it would never knock out a smaller piece. So it was in 1968 that Stanford's Linear Accelerator Center began to conduct what are now known as the deep inelastic scattering experiments. Deep here refers to very high energies, and inelastic here means that some of the energy in the collision was converted into mass. And what did they find? They found that indeed protons are made of smaller point-like objects that we now call quarks. What happened in the experiment is that the electron struck the proton so hard, interacting with one of its quarks, that it effectively knocked one of the quarks out of the proton. Now, for those of you who are familiar with quantum chromodynamics, you know that quarks can't exist on their own. By the way, I know that might not be a lot of you, but just trust me on this, quarks can't exist on their own. So what happened then when the quark was knocked out of the proton is that it pulled out more energy and constructed more quarks out of the quark field so that it could become what is now known as a color singlet. And so what happened from this one quark being ejected from the proton, you had a whole spray of subatomic particles coming out. Detecting that spray of subatomic particles is precisely how we knew that the proton had to be made of smaller bits. If it weren't, we would just expect the electron to bounce off and go in some direction, but the proton to remain intact. But that's not what was observed. Let's talk about quarks. So this commenter was asking me to talk about deep inelastic scattering experiments that were Let's talk about
So this one guy commented and said quarks are also believed to be made up of even smaller string-like particles that can help in mathematic development of string theory and wormholes. So, man. So we go even smaller than a quark. We can look into string theory and wormholes. Oh my goodness. So they're basically saying even smaller than quarks, you have literal smaller particles made of string, like the Matrix. So quarks actually isn't the smallest object. That's just small as what we can see so far.
How wormholes work explained to an 11-year-old. Shortcuts in space that let you travel anywhere in the universe in just a few seconds. Sounds ridiculous, I know, but the smartest man in history, Einstein, is the one who came up with it, and he says it's theoretically possible. So the classic analogy, picture a bowling ball on a trampoline. The trampoline curves inward around the ball, and smaller balls that are put on the trampoline roll towards the bowling ball, which imitates gravity. The trampoline is space, and the bowling ball is an object, like the sun, which actually curves the space around it. If we squeeze that bowling ball to get smaller and smaller while keeping its mass the same, the trampoline ends up getting more and more curved. And eventually, the trampoline space gets so warped that it just rips a hole right through it. This is a black hole, and any ball you put on the trampoline now just falls right through the hole and is gone forever. Wormholes are similar to black holes, except instead of collapsing into eternal darkness, due to the intense warping of space around these objects, 2 of these holes collapse into each other, creating a sort of tunnel that you could pass through. Now, since gravity is constantly trying to collapse these holes into a single point, these tunnels would actually pinch in the middle and they would not be
or density.
passable. But if we can somehow make enough energy to hold these tunnels open, such as using something called exotic matter, we can, in theory, enter one side of the wormhole and exit in a completely different part of the universe in seconds. And now that's what we call a wormhole. How wormholes work?
Alright guys, hear me out for a second. Like, I know a lot of you don't believe in space, and I get it 100%. But what if these wormholes, what if this theory really just takes place on an Earth surface level, and that this is actually how you form a portal? So think of wormholes kind of as portals on Earth, but what if it's possible? That's what I'm starting to get. We just haven't, we just can't do portals yet, because now we in Stargate territory. So maybe they were actually able to make wormholes, but it was literally called stargates back in the day. From these, the Egyptian pyramids, maybe they had some type of energy beaming up. They had this technology. This is just us trying to figure out, how is this possible? How is an actual portal possible? And according to y'all boy Einstein, they said it was, but they're trying to say wormholes. They really trying to send us off. We just trying to, go in different places on Earth, to be honest.
The tunnel seemed to come alive. It began to breathe, undulating, as if it had a life of its own. The workers witnessed the walls pulsating like a living, breathing entity. The tunnel moved like a cloud, appearing and disappearing in a rhythmic dance that defied all logic. In the depths of Northwest Colombia, construction workers toiled beneath the surface on a government project, digging through what seemed to be an ordinary tunnel. The humdrum of machinery and the rhythm of pickaxes hitting rock filled the air, a typical day underground. But then, something inexplicable occurred. Scientists analyzed the footage of the bizarre pulsing energy. The footage baffled them. Was this dangerous? Would the tunnel collapse? The regular pulsation suggested something was controlling the phenomenon. Some of the greatest minds in science had entertained the possibility of wormholes. Introduced by Einstein in 1935, a wormhole is essentially a shortcut, a subway system connecting two distant points in space and time. Conventional space travel to Alpha Centauri A, the nearest star to the Sun, would take approximately 165,000 years. A wormhole, however, could potentially reduce that journey to just 4 years. The tunnel seemed to come alive. It began to breathe.
Again, we just trying to go past the ice walls. If we can get a wormhole or a portal or a stargate past the ice walls, maybe see our ancestors, get some of this ancient knowledge back. That's what we're trying to obtain. We forget that star 900 million miles away, and it's going to take 4 years. We ain't got time for that. We just trying to walk through something and be there immediately.
Honestly, this is the simple way to understand the structure of a wormhole. And this is not an accurate depiction or visualization, but it is. You know what I'm saying? It's a great opinion. Understanding that if you put your consciousness or your thoughts and your spiritual sense when you're dreaming universally, you understand that you can travel from this plane, actually this plane to this plane, to this plane, connected to this plane. So we live in this system right here, this enclosed trap right here. But when you're dreaming, this is when you can go off and do whatever you want. So as you're doing that, you're going to a different hole, that you've been living in. You know what I'm saying? You've been living in this hole right here. And understand that when you're connecting your consciousness, you're traveling to a different wormhole, which is full of other vehicles, other life and different space of your mind. Because space exists within your mind. This is not space right here, but it is. Because what is it? Nothing but the ocean, the water within yourself. Now, as we go down for here, white hole to the galaxy 2, understand that what's the opposite of black? white. So now, boom, as you go into here, you're going to understand that your other galaxy, your other system, because you are trapped in that system as well. But you can tap into this system right here and be different physically and spiritually, and you'll be able to upgrade the degraded system that you have been placed in, that you've been living in. And as you do that, you'll be able to do whatever you want and make your dreams your reality. You can tap into yourself in a different galaxy, not knowing that you are watching yourself from a third person point of view when you are living like this. So if you think about it, in your other galaxy, you are sleeping right now in galaxy 2 during the daytime, because it's like 3:07 in Georgia. So in the other galaxy, you are being watched by God, not knowing your higher self, your future self is you. You are watching yourself through the white hole, which is also the black hole, as above, so below. You watch yourself through this galaxy, and you're being watched by God, your future self, and the choices that you make are being placed through your choices, so they're being trapped into your consciousness, to where you walk and talk and do whatever you do, you work and do, and you go, you have your friends, your family, your dog, whatever you think that your numerology code is going to place into your life, or your angel numbers. You're watching yourself and you're doing everything that you've been told you are not and you are going to do. So when you're doing it, don't be surprised that God is blessing you in different ways or giving you blissfulness in different ways, because you deserve it, but you don't deserve it. That's why you don't get everything that you think you deserve, because you haven't earned it, nor are you ready for it, because God already seen you go through it, to where he was like, you know what, I'm not going to place this into you in the current system that you are placed in. So once you tap into this right here, you are able to see yourself in a different world, in a different dimension that you've been living in. And so when you become awake to yourself in different universal dreams, then you can have this dream sucked right in from this system into this system. Now your dreams have become your reality. In every life, or every moment that you wake up, you will know, like, damn, God works in mysterious ways, because you are the reflection of God. So yeah.
That was an interesting take. I'd never heard of a white hole before. Let's see what a white hole is.
What is a white hole? Theoretically, it's the twin of a black hole. In the early 20th century, black holes were theoretical. When Einstein created his general theory of relativity, he also mathematically predicted black holes. At the time, no one was sure they were even real, but we now know they exist. One of the other entities predicted in general relativity was a white hole. For a black hole, everything flows inward and nothing can escape, not even light. But a white hole would be the opposite, an outward flowing of time and space where nothing can enter. So everything is being ejected, including light, which is why they'd be white. Mathematically, they work, but only their existence. The creation of one has to make sense too. To create a white hole, you'd have to reverse entropy, which would also mean reversing time. If you saw the movie Tenet, you're probably familiar with the idea where they would reverse entropy objects. If the movie didn't make sense to you, don't worry, reverse entropy doesn't fully check. It's basically like unscrambling an egg. But if reverse entropy could happen, then that's actually one way the Big Bang could have happened. Imagine jumping on a trampoline. The only way you can snap up is if there's an opposite action, downward. That downward motion could have been reverse entropy, a white hole, and that snapped up into the Big Bang. There are other theories, like a white hole is on the opposite side of a black hole, creating new universes from our matter, or that a white hole comes at the end of a black hole's life. Ultimately, white holes are a mathematical exercise. We have very little evidence for their existence for now. What is a white hole?
You know, I'm starting to learn that just because someone has an explanation for something doesn't necessarily mean that is our literal reality. It's up to us to literally dig in, do our own research, and come up with our own hypothesis of what we can physically see and what we can physically believe in. So that's just my take on it.
Many people have a hard time discerning the shocking. I'm beginning to understand that many people have a hard time discerning explanation from proof. Because someone gives you an explanation for an unprovable phenomenon does not make that explanation proof. We are told that lunar eclipses occur when the sun, the earth, and the moon are in a direct line. Supposedly, the sun shines light onto earth, the earth then casts its shadow onto the moon, okay? That is an explanation for a phenomenon that we see in the sky. It is not proof. Proof would be to see this happening from a different vantage point. We would need to go up on a rocket into, quote, outer space to get high enough to see the sun, the earth, and the moon and be able to say, okay, I am observing this phenomenon happen. But we can't. So this can't be used as proof of a globe Earth. In fact, it can't be used as proof of anything. It only proves to me that you accept explanations without critically thinking. My son was suspended from school one day, and he came home and he gave me a good explanation as to why this happened. At first, I accepted that explanation until more evidence arose, and then I realized that that explanation was not proof, nor was it truth. You see where I'm going with this? We also have an eclipse that is called a selenilian. It is referred to as an impossible occurrence because it is literally impossible on a globe. It is impossible because both the sun and moon are above the horizon when this eclipse occurs, making it impossible for Earth's supposed shadow to be causing this phenomenon. It has been explained, not proven, explained away as the effects of atmospheric refraction. But let me remind you, refraction is of light waves, not shadows. Not only that, during this eclipse, the shadow is on the top half of the moon. I don't know how you want to explain that unless you want to say it's a mirage. I know you guys are good for that.
It's a mirage.
But the fact is, you will accept any explanation given to you as long as it's coming from someone that's higher in this hierarchy system. That's the way your brain was programmed to work. If I tell you something, you'll go back and forth with me about it all day. But if a guy with a white lab coat on comes along and tells you something, he doesn't even have to have a GED or a high school diploma. You will accept it as proof, and you will go around telling everybody that you know the truth. And it's all because you were programmed to accept whatever comes from somebody who fits the description. You see, if there's more than one plausible explanation for a phenomenon, then neither of them can be used to explain it. At some point, you're going to have to choose. And in doing so, you're going to have faith, making the globe that you believe in your religion, the same way is my religion. But I'll be the first to say there's more evidence to support my religion than yours. My religion is based on observable facts, while yours is based on theories. I'm beginning to understand that many people have a hard time discerning explanation from proof, because
I literally remember when I was in, I believe it was 5th grade, I asked my science teacher. Science was my favorite class because we just would talk about outer space. I love the galaxies, the horseshoe nebula, all that fun stuff. But anyways, I asked him, I'm like, how come sometimes when you could see the moon in a crescent, but you could still see the other half of the moon within the shadow? He literally could not answer that question. He said, that is a great question. Let me get back to you on that. And he got back to me on it the very next day. Like, that was the first thing as soon as I came in class. He's like, hey, I found that answer for you. And it literally, I remember him trying to explain it, but I'm like, this makes no sense whatsoever. So if someone is telling you something and you literally cannot put the pieces together and it doesn't make any sense, there's a strong chance that intuition in your body, your discernment, is saying that's not it. That's not the truth. So it's up to you to really find out what you truly believe in. Do your own research. Keep your head on a swivel. That is the true definition of keep your head on a swivel. Don't take what someone says to you and run with it. Say, nah, I'm keep my head on a swivel, man. That means you about to do your own research. You're going to dive in these waters and come up with your own conclusion. Come up with your own hypothesis. Test that hypothesis in different ways. Different ways you can test it. Throw everything you can at that hypothesis and then truly have a solid foundation in what you believe in. Let's go, y'all. During my last live yesterday, someone said, Demon Wave computer. I'm like, Demon Wave? I never heard of that. I heard of D Wave, and it got me thinking, oh, damn. Maybe that's what the D stands for. So we got to dive into this, man.
Supposedly invented the D-Wave computer and also now the Kindred computer stuff. He has a few things to say about this big black cube, this big black monolith. And it's very interesting, but you need to watch it for yourself. And I don't even believe that these guys invent this stuff themselves. And some have even said that they don't even know how it works. It just does. And I believe that they've been fed this technology through fallen angels. And what's interesting is, hear his own words. He even claims that when he's standing before this thing, it's like he's standing in front or before an altar of an alien god. Listen.
This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines.
The guy that supposedly invented the
I don't know. How are we supposed to take that? An altar to alien gods? Oh my god. Man. What are they trying to accomplish here? They said in the movie Lucy, spoiler alert, she when she went into God mode, she turned into a tower. You know? I don't get it. Could this be an alien gift? Let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna try to, see if we got anything new on the D-Wave, man. Because I remember seeing that circulating a while ago. I wonder if there's anything new on this.
Now this video is on quantum computing D-Wave. Now these computers are used supposedly to take things out of parallel universes. And they've been doing this for 9 years. Supposedly that's what this company is saying. And you know how dangerous that could be? Taking something out of a parallel universe, you don't even know what it could be. Check out this video and tell me what you think.
Lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall.
I know. Let's see if we got some pictures of the inside or something, man. Something new on this. They're keeping the hush hush on this, man. How come we haven't heard anything new since this dude dropped this? This should be on the front pages of updates. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to do my best to see if we got anything new, or even if we can look inside one of these things.
And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero.
Beast. And how can the mark be revealed if he, quote unquote, hasn't been revealed yet? Well, personally, I believe that the Beast is an artificially intelligent machine living within the quantum computers at D-Wave. Now you have to understand how deep this really goes, because even the device that I'm holding right now and the device that you're holding right now is connected to the Beast system. However, I'm using his system for good to expose him while I still can. But there's coming a time where they will do an internet reset, and no longer will the internet be an open system where everyone can post, but it'll be a closed system controlled by the elites entirely. The Beast already exists, he's already out in the world, and he is gathering information to create the image of the Beast, which is the first artificially intelligent humanoid machine which is given a mouth to speak and forces and mandates the mark, which is being distributed as I speak right now. Bless you.
This is like take 59 on this video. I'm not lying to you, fam. I tell y'all, whenever I do these Mandela effect videos, TikTok be doing the most. One time my voice was too slow on the first take. The next take, my voice was fast as hell. Then my lighting on my screen magically went down. Look, you know what? I honestly feel like because I do these TikTok videos, I'm a targeted individual. I'm not gonna lie to you, fam. You know that there's a hashtag that says stay woke, stay broke, right? In other words, you could be a sheeple and you could just go to work, shut the fuck up, or you can do like me and pay attention and call shit out, and then they'll just blackball you and everything. I just feel like that's part of it, because most jobs only not hire you if you have a felony. They don't be tripping off misdemeanors that haven't been resolved yet. Anyways, man, let's get into this video. When I grew up, we use Maxwell tapes. I'm scared because I'm like, I'm scared they're gonna fuck with my editing again. But we grew up on Maxwell tapes, fam. You wanted to watch a Bulls game? I grew up in Chicago. You wanted to record a Bulls game? Maxwell tape. You wanted to make a Hot 97 mixtape and record off the radio? Maxwell tape. Now, this timeline, that's all goofy. And when I grew up, was Maxwell tapes, right? You know what the modern timeline is now? It's Max L tapes, fam. The whole damn W was gone. Watch this. I literally got to look and check the bottom and the speed to make sure it ain't tweaking on me. Look, fam, this is what happens when you type in Maxwell tapes in the Google search bar nowadays. Modern day on this timeline with that CERN and the Large Hadron Collider done messed up with D-Wave computers. They did it, bro. Look, this is what shot pops up on Google search. I typed in Maxwell tapes. You see it. Look what it shows me. Max L tapes. What the hell is a Max L tape, fam? What is that? And don't try to say, oh, our minds did it. Our minds made up that and whoop-de-doo, whoop-de-doo. No, fam. Our minds didn't do none of that. I have a good memory. My memory serves me well. And I grew up on Maxwell tapes. Now look, when I type in Maxwell tapes Mandela effect, this is what you get. This is what you get when you type in the Google search bar, Maxwell tape Mandela effect. You click on images. You see a Maxwell tape right there, the movie Kazam. We're not talking about those right now. I'm just showing you the difference. You see it, residual evidence. How did I get the residual evidence? If Maxwell tapes never existed, how am I able to show you Maxwell tapes? Because I don't want nobody to say nothing or look, you see I typed in Maxwell tapes Mandela effect. Images. This is what you get. A Maxwell tape. A Maxwell tape. Now let's go back to my original picture. Maxwell tape, fam. This is what I grew up on. This is from the old timeline before shit got weird and CERN messed it up. We had Maxwell tapes. Now, one more time for the people in the back. Mandela effect is when they call us crazy. They're gonna say that these never existed, fam. You can't tell them that. Me on the mud one. My memory serves me well, fam. Now let's go back to the modern day timeline one more time. This is what happens if you type in the Google search right now, Maxwell tapes. You're gonna get Max L tapes. The only reason why you see Maxwell tapes Mandela effect is because I typed it in. If you don't type it in, you're gonna get all of these without a W. And that's what they're trying to tell. Go to the store right now, you can't buy a Maxwell tape. It's a Max L tape. That's weird as hell. Now, you go and you type in Maxwell tapes Mandela effect, you get this right here along with some other things. You type in Maxwell tapes regular, get this crap right here. This is what you get. This is what you get in the regular Google search bar, because I don't want nobody to, oh, you didn't know. No, you see what I typed in. You damn it, you see what I typed in. Now, right back to my original picture. Maxwell tapes, man. You can't tell me nothing, man. I don't know what's going on with the timeline or what CERN done did, but stop telling people that we crazy, man. We not crazy, fam. Something's up, and it's not okay.
What do you guys? That was a little bit before my time, man. But I do remember recording on VHS. But Maxwell, guys, let me know your thoughts below. Did it have the W or not? I'm sure some of you guys can go in a basement and dig a couple up. You know, let your boy know. Let's keep going on these waters.
The Mandela effect, a phenomenon.
You wanna play with magic?
Okay, the D wave kind of goes around Saturn. Okay, we getting somewhere with that. They got a black cube in Australia. I don't know. What's up with this black cube? This black transformer cube, y'all. Oh, yeah, I did want to say that later on tonight around 8 p.m., 10 p.m. Eastern, I am going to be going live again to tie in all the loose ends of, there's a lot of stuff I didn't cover, like the the Chinese quantum computer, the IBM quantum computers. You know, a couple of those episodes we're going to have to try and for the full length and do a full reaction to. So definitely be typing in jet ski chuck in YouTube around 8 p.m., 10 p.m. and look for the live, because we are going to be tying in a lot of loose ends on this video. And we need to do this one together as a community. So I look forward to seeing you guys later on tonight. Guys, that's all I got for today's episode. I mean, I could dive on this all day for hours, but this I gotta chop this up and I gotta get this to you guys. If you made it this far, be sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I'm gonna try to work on that merch today. Have some sweaters out here by next week. Have some hats. You know what I'm saying? So we kid it out, man. But I appreciate you guys. Have a good one. Until next time, God bless. All praises to the Most High. Peace out.